It was a cold and snowy night that Christmas Eve on December 24th. He was a good man. He was kind. He was generous. He loved his family, respected his neighbors, but when it came to Christmas time, he just had a hard time believing that God had come to be a man and was born as a baby in a manger. And he was just too honest to pretend otherwise. So as his wife and kids were getting ready to go to the church's Christmas Eve service, he pulled his wife gently aside and he said, "Now, dear, I know this might upset you, but I'm not going to be going to the Christmas Eve service tonight. I'd much rather just stay home and read my book. But I'll wait up for you and the kids when you get back. I just can't go. I'd feel like a hypocrite, honestly." His wife smiled a painful smile, and in her heart she sent up a quick little prayer to God for her husband. And as the car slowly left the driveway, the snow kept coming down, and the man noticed that a storm was coming. It came down heavier and heavier. Well, he went back and he lit a fire in the family room and went to the kitchen, made himself a snack and got a cup of coffee and his favorite book, and went back by the fire and sat down in his favorite chair and began to read and just have a quiet, peaceful evening by himself. Not too long afterwards, he heard a thud, and a thud, and a thud. And he thought to himself, "What is that?" He looked out the window and noticed the snow was really coming down heavy now. He went back to his chair and picked up his book, but before he could even start to read, thud, thud, thud. He got up and he opened his front door and he noticed that there was a little group of birds that had gotten caught in the storm. And he thought they must have seen the light and the warmth of his fireplace, and they were trying to fly through his front window. And he looked at them, flailing around helplessly in the snow. And he wasn't sure what to do. He couldn't just leave them there to freeze. And then he thought, "Oh yeah, what about the barn? If I could get them into the barn, that would be a safe shelter from the storm." So quickly he went inside and he got on his winter coat, put on his hat and a scarf around his neck, put his snow boots on, and he trudged out to his barn, which was close by. He opened up the doors wide and turned on the lights, but the birds just kept flailing in the snow. He went over and he tried to pick them up and put them in the barn, but that didn't work. He tried to shoo the birds into the barn. That didn't work either. They just scattered. He went back into the house. He got some breadcrumbs, and he laid out a trail from where the birds were into the barn. He thought, yeah, maybe they'll eat the food and find their way into the safety and shelter of the barn, away from the storm. But that didn't work either. The man was frustrated. He wasn't sure what to do. And then he realized, they're afraid of me. They must see me as some kind of a big, strange creature. And every time I approach them, they scatter. And he wasn't sure what to do. He thought, if I could be a bird, I would be able to communicate with them. They would trust me, and I could lead them into the safety of the barn, and they'd be safe from the storm. And then off in the distance, he heard the church bells ring as they were bringing in the good tidings of joy and Christmas Eve. The man paused as he listened, and then he fell down into the snow on both knees. And he looked up to heaven and he said, "Now I understand. Now I understand why you came." You know, that's really the message of Christmas. Our world was lost, and God sent his son, Jesus, in our shape, in our figure, in our form. He took on our flesh so that he might share God's love with us and show us the way to safety, to salvation for our souls. In the book of Matthew, the angel Gabriel is speaking to Joseph. And he said this in Matthew chapter 1, verse 21, that your betrothed, Mary, she will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. And all this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet Isaiah. "Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel," which means God with us. Isn't that interesting? The name Jesus means God saves. The name Emmanuel, which the Bible also gives to Jesus, means God with us. God becoming one of us to save us from our sins. In the book of John, chapter 1, verse 9, it tells us a little bit about who this baby was. It says that the true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world didn't know him. He came to his own, but his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word, that's Jesus, took on our flesh, and he dwelt among us just over 2,000 years ago. He lived 33 years, and he was born to give his life for you and me, for our salvation. Don't let another Christmas go by without receiving the light that had come into the world. God's Son, his message of salvation to you and I. Yeah, it might be hard to comprehend, of God in the form of a little baby at Christmas. But God he was, God with us, the Christ child, Emmanuel. And all we need to do is believe that he truly was God and that he died on the cross for the forgiveness of our sins. And the Bible tells us that our sins will be forgiven and we will be saved.